Well, that was a great adventure and an excellent example of what's available to the Clark County adventurer just beyond our border. But as always, it's great to be back home. Now, before we end the show, I'd like to show you my recipe for chili cheese biscuits cooked in a Dutch oven.
The ingredients are fairly simple. We have 2 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon sugar, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 3/4 cup of milk. We're also going to use 7 tablespoons of chilled butter. It's important that the butter is chilled, so we've covered it with ice to keep it cold. And 1 cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. Here I have my chilies. They're a combination of 2 Anaheim and 3 Serrano. We've fire roasted them and sautéed them so the flavors meld together. If you'd like a complete list of ingredients and detailed instructions on how to fire roast chilies, visit our website at alongtheway.org. Well, those are the ingredients. Let's get started.
Actually, this is pretty easy to make, a little time consuming, not that bad though. We start by including all of our dry ingredients. 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, be sure you blend these up well. I know it doesn't seem like it should be of consequence, but in fact it is. So make sure you get all of your dry ingredients blended up well. Once they're blended, then it's pretty simple. Take your butter, one little pat at a time, and with your hands, blend the butter into the flour. This is the most time-consuming and tedious portion of the process. It's pretty simple, though. It's just a matter of slowly kneading the butter into the flour, creating little tiny pea-shaped balls of flour at the end. Make sure that the butter is chilled. If it's warm, it'll just almost melt into the flour. You actually want to blend it in with your hands. I'm using Plugro butter, a very specialized European-style butter. It's made here in the United States, but there's a little bit more butter fat to it, and there's less moisture to it also. They also say it's perfect for baking, that it makes your pastries rise a little better, make them a little fluffier. It's probably true. Well, I find that to be true, but who knows? Well, now that we've completely incorporated our 7 tablespoons of butter, we're going to dig out a little small hole in the center here and slowly add in a very small amount of our milk, 3/4 cup of milk. We're going to add in the flour from the outside, slowly bringing the dry ingredients into the center where the milk is, so that we make sure that the milk doesn't just incorporate with the flour in the center. We want to make sure that it completely gets throughout. As we add in the last of the milk here, we're now finally getting to the consistency that we ultimately expect, which really is just kind of a big glob of dough. It's not quite moist, but it's by no means dry either. And it's going to wind up as just a big ball. Now that we've done that, we're going to set this aside for a second and bring up our kneading board. On the board, we've already got some flour. I'm going to dust my hands slightly, reach into the bowl, and pull out our dough. Going to try to make a bit of a rectangle here, about a 1/2 inch thick. Once we get our 1/2 inch of dough here, we're going to reach in and take half of our chilies, lay them right in the center, remembering that we're going to fold this like a letter going into an envelope. Then we're going to take half of our cheese and put it right down the middle here. Now that we have our first layer, we'll bring up the one side of the letter, fold it in on it, and take the remainder of our chilies and cover this second fold. Once the chilies are on, take a nice heaping amount of cheese, cover the rest of that top, and then fold over the last bit of our letter. Now here's where we'll do things a little bit different than you might normally. We're going to take our rectangle, spread it out, and once again I'm going to try and thin it down to about a 1/2 inch. What this is going to do is 2 things. One, it's going to help us to incorporate the chilies and the cheese into the dough better. And also, by layering again a second time, we're going to make it a little bit lighter, a little bit fluffier, so that our biscuits are going to be more like almost pastry than the biscuits that you're used to. Now that all the ingredients have been incorporated in, we're going to make a rectangle, this time about 3/4 of an inch in thickness, about the thickness of our cutter. And then we're going to take a paper plate and place our cut biscuits on top. Look at that, absolutely perfect. Well, the rest of this is pretty simple. We've preheated our oven here for quite some time, as a matter of fact. We're now we put a little bit of parchment paper in the bottom, and I'm going to place my biscuits fairly wide. I'm going to put 6 around the outside and a 7th one in the middle. We're going to cook this with 6 to 8 coals on the bottom and 14 to 20 on the top, depending upon the temperature. Time-wise, figure on anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, depending upon the weather. And again, just check at about 15 minutes. If they're golden brown, they're done.